Welcome to the boot. The World Cup is finally here. Game one, Qatar the host versus Ecuador. We finally get to break this down. Beautiful stadium, beautiful evening. Lots of interesting things to talk about tonight. So let's start with the lineups. Qatar starts with a 5-3-2 lineup and Ecuador with a 4-4-2. First thing I want to look at is one of the early opportunities in the game. A little bit of a misplay by Qatar's keeper here. Comes out unnecessarily far on a ball up in the air and goes to punch it out and ends up punching it straight up in the air. So this is going to give Ecuador a nice little opportunity early in the game here. You can see the keeper is pretty much sandwiched at this point. Now the ball is directly overhead. The keeper's made his way back a little bit towards the goal, but he's kind of in no man's land right now. So let's see what happens here. Ecuador attempts a pseudo bicycle kick here to really just get the ball in the box. And notice the keeper is still not quite to his near post and nowhere between the two posts. This is going to present a problem in just a second as the ball reaches Ecuador star Valencia, who has an easy tap in and literally an open net. I know that phrase gets used maybe a little bit too much, but he has a complete open net. He puts it away. You could see the keeper was still next to the near post there. So a little bit of a disaster start for the hosts. They're clearly looking a little bit nervous. The keeper's looking a little bit nervous. But let's see what happens next. Now we've got another fast break for Ecuador. Ecuador really put on the pressure early on. Here, Valencia is going to make another run at the top there, and the midfielder is going to try to slot the ball to him. He makes the right decision, and he makes the right pass. What do you think is going to happen here? Valencia is one-on-one with the keeper. He does have a defender on each side of him, so it makes it really difficult for him to cut either way. And so the keeper comes out quite a ways. Can't fault him for that. But what's interesting here is that Valencia tries to dribble to the left of the keeper. And we'll see on a different angle, but Valencia does a wonderful job of shielding the ball from the keeper. You can see the keeper's right hand there reaching over to try to get the ball. And this is the angle that really shows it. Keeper is really in trouble because Valencia doesn't even make a fake shot on goal. He doesn't even have a good juke as far as faking the keeper one way or the other on the dribble. So the keeper does go down a little bit early in this kind of situation. If you see the other team is going to dribble around you, you've got to stay on your feet. And here's what happens next. Valencia does a really clever job here of keeping his body between the ball and the keeper. The rules are a little bit gray on this. In a separate situation, for example, if you're a defender and you are racing after a ball in the corner against the opponents, you have to run directly toward the ball. You can't just run toward the opponent and clear that opponent out of the way. So you could make, I don't know if Qatar would have even thought about this, but they could make a little bit of a case here that Valencia is dribbling around the keeper, but Valencia is not following the path of the ball close enough, and he's needlessly putting the keeper at risk. Would be interesting to have a couple different angles here, but clearly I took this image here is for the reason that you can see the ball is clearly behind Valencia's left knee. So he has not one, but both legs between between the ball and the keeper. So very, very clever. Valencia is a veteran, and, veterans know how to win. They know how to, play with the rules, within the rules. And let's see what happens next. The keeper extends his arm as much as he can. He's got to know that he's got two defenders that can at least take a sliding tackle at Valencia if he gets by him. But this next one here is where he makes the kiss of death. He actually reaches for Valencia's ankle. Now, you might be wondering, and I'd like to get your comments below on any of these things as usual, but why would the keeper grab Valencia's ankle there? And it's partly because he knew at this point Valencia has him beat. And the reason for that, again, is the ball is on the other side. There's no way that he can knock it out at this point. He probably thinks his defender, I'm hoping he thinks his defender is far enough back to where, as a keeper, he's not going to get a red card. If you don't know, the keeper would have gotten a red card and had to leave the game had he been the last person between Ecuador and the goal, if there was no defender in the vicinity there. So typically the referee will only call that if it's just an extreme case. But anyway, Valencia has outfoxed the keeper here, and he gets the penalty kick. Let's see what he does with it. Valencia is really good at keeping his head up when he kicks the ball. Very few players do that. And so he's able to watch the keeper fall to the left, and he just calmly slots it in the right. Didn't even hit it that hard, which I know is extra frustrating for the keeper probably. But Ecuador takes an early lead. And all of a sudden, Ecuador is back on the attack again. Still early in the game here. And Valencia is going to dish it off to his other forward on the left there that's highlighted. And really, it looks like there's going to be a clear shot on goal here. And I really can't fault Qatar's defense too much here. Valencia's teammate made a nice run. That's going to happen. You're going to get outpaced. But the defender on Valencia is tight. The defender on the next Ecuador forward up above is tight. So we've got a fast break here. He actually, I think, goes too far towards the baseline, loses a little bit of control, or the end line rather. Wasn't the best dribbling, so that's fine. But he still has a teammate in the center of the box, near the 6-yard box. Should be another tap-in, which frankly, almost an open net. So he chips it up here, and now look, it turns out that this Ecuador player was offsides, because had he not been offsides, this would have been maybe the miss of the tournament and maybe one of the great misses of all the World Cups. He's got an open net again, and he's going to connect with this ball only about a foot at most from the goal. Like, it would be hard not to put this in the net. Now, I realize that sometimes there's a cross where the player does their very best to try to jump up as high as they can, and it skims off the very top of their head, and they just couldn't get on top of it. In this case, that was definitely not the problem. Look at, he's still almost planted to the ground, so it's not like he jumped as high as he could. The occasion was too big, and he puts it right over the net. To add insult to injury, I had to put this in here. So the Ecuador player who missed that is lying in the goal. So he scored himself, but he didn't score the ball. You know it's bad when your teammate over here, who's also underscored, has his hands on his head. But hey, Ecuador's still up 1-0. And we'll move on to the next scene. Here, I just want to call out, we always like to call out great skills, great effort, whether it's offense or defense. And in this case, Qatar makes a side pass over in the back, over to one of their left central back. And he's got all the time in the world. I mean, he's got a good, 18 yards between him and the Ecuador defender. The Ecuador defender decides to hustle. Good for him. Sometimes in these huge games, you can freeze up a little bit. But not only that, I'm a big fan of this. Not enough players do this, but he was brave enough to simply put his foot up, and he actually blocked that kick. There are some players that are willing to do it and some that aren't. So good for him. We move on to the next play. And I like to go back to the beginning of goals so that you can appreciate the game more, enjoy it more, and see how an actual goal unfolds. Because typically on the typical highlights, all we get is just the kick itself, the goal, or maybe the assist leading up to it. But how does Ecuador score their second goal? It's right here. I say it a lot, football is a game of inches and also a game of football IQ. So Qatar throws the ball into his teammate, but he doesn't give him a good pass. Either, I'm always a proponent of throw the ball into your teammate's feet. It's not that hard. Or give him a good bounce pass so it's easy to control. The Qatar player who is going to receive this ball already knows that Ecuador's flying down on him. So he's looking for a good pass. He gets a pass that's really hard to handle. It bounces on the ground about 10 feet in front of him. So he knows, this is going to bounce up to my thigh or my chest. It's going to take me a while to bring it down. I don't have a whole lot of help here. And sure enough, Ecuador gets there about the same time, and it's a scramble for the ball. Now, the Qatar player could have and probably should have boxed out the Ecuador player better by turning his body to shield out the Ecuador player, but it really stems from the throw primarily. Ecuador steals the ball, and the fast break is on. Now here, Valencia is making another run up top. The other highlighted player has the ball and lots of space. So what would you do here? Again, I love to do these freeze frames to analyze what the players did, but also for fun, decide what we would do, because it's remarkable. Even when we have the benefit of time, sometimes it's hard to come up with the best decision or as good of a decision as some of these players make on certain plays. So here's how this unfolds. He's got two passes in my view, two good opportunities. Valencia actually has enough space between the center defender where he could easily slot the pass to him. The center defender, if you notice, you can see his numbers. I mean, he's got his back turned to Valencia. There's no way a hard pass isn't going to get through. But also he has a secondary outlet on the left too. The problem with the man with the ball for Ecuador right now is he's not going to pick that up. He doesn't have his head on a swivel, and he ends up kind of focusing to his teammate to the right there. And so let's see how this unfolds. Okay, so Valencia now has gone offside. So I take that arrow out, but he still, had he looked back over, he still had his teammate on the left here open, and then he could have done a combo with Valencia. That would have been the best choice by far. Instead, he dribbles over to the right, and then too late, he makes a pass to his running teammate, and the Qatar defender sticks out his foot and blocks it. Ecuador gets a little bit lucky here because the ball bounces right back to the same dribbler, and he starts to dribble towards the corner. He's smart enough at this point. He's double teamed to say, you know what, I got to get rid of the ball. He knows a teammate is coming on. Now, the key question here I have is, as the ball is approaching the Ecuador teammate, what is the Ecuador teammate going to do? Is he going to take too long on the ball like a lot of players do in big moments, or is he going to one-time this? He has the benefit as he's approaching the ball to look up and see Valencia, the superstar. He also sees a couple of his other teammates in the box ready to go. So he does the right thing. He connects first time. I've got Valencia highlighted there. And then the ball goes over the Qatar defense, and Valencia slots it in the corner with a beautiful header just underneath the keeper's arms there. Now, let's break it down from a different angle. This is Valencia's teammate whose sky's really high. Where are the Qatar defenders? Okay, this isn't a hard one for any of us to see, okay? But nonetheless, the defender to the left of the Ecuador player has got to, at this point, shift back and cover Valencia right behind him. Valencia's only like 5 feet behind him, but he shouldn't have been left open. Instead, that defender is doing absolutely nothing, because even if the ball goes over the Ecuador player, there's nothing the Qatar defender can do. So these are the kind of things that drive coaches like me batty and fans, and they cost teams games and World Cups. The player on the right-hand side for Qatar should have slid back too. I make this analogy sometimes. This is no different than a Major League Baseball outfielder misjudging a fly ball. I'm continually amazed at how few players at the highest level are really good at judging the ball right off the foot. Cristiano Ronaldo is obviously one of the best. The second he reads a cross or a corner kick, it's as though he knows exactly where the ball's going to go, and he moves. A lot of these other players, they get stuck in the occasion. Even if they know the ball's going over their head, they don't react quick enough. And so here is what happens. It actually does go over the Ecuador player there, even though he skied pretty well. And again, it goes right over the Qatar defender. He's not serving any purpose, and it leaves an open goal for Valencia. And Valencia, frankly, mishits it. You don't always have to hit your headers very well. He actually hits this partly off his shoulder, but he's got the right angle towards the goal. And he's got a pretty much an open goal here too. And he puts it down like he should. He hits it right because the keeper really almost got there in terms of his wingspan, but the ball was on the ground. The keeper couldn't get his arm down quick enough. I wanted to highlight a subtlety here in the course of play too. Other things that typically you're not going to see on highlights. This is Valencia shortly after his second goal, and maybe he's getting marked a lot tougher now. But as I say often, football is a game of IQ too, and football IQ. And Valencia has got to make sure as the star of this team that he stays fit. Picking up one additional foul in a non-strategic place especially isn't going to help your team. What's going to hurt your team, though, is if you get injured for the rest of the tournament. Valencia here knows that this guy is flying in on him. He has seen him from about at least 12 yards away. And so he's bracing to pick up the foul. He had plenty of time, frankly, just to move off the ball, move with the ball, one of those two options. Instead, he lets this guy absolutely crash into him. You could easily see his left knee, anterior cruciate, snapping right there. And thankfully, it did not. He kept his knee just bent enough to help absorb the blow, but had his leg been straight there, that would have been potentially tournament-ending injury. So these are the things, if I'm the coach, I'm talking with Valencia afterwards, hey, nice 2 goals, but we cannot have you afford to get hurt. And again, it's risk and reward. It's like an investor. It just amazes me how many players are willing to, put their head on the line, for example, for the most dangerous header in the middle of nowhere that means absolutely nothing. You have the smart players that we highlight on other videos like Messi that don't even bother with that. They're already trying to figure out where to be when that ball comes down, whoever heads it or whoever doesn't head it. So another angle here shows how his knee could have just been crashed there. And then to boot, we have another one in just a minute on Valencia right here. Now, this is all Valencia. Qatar actually has the ball here. And again, in the middle of the field, I admire intensity, no doubt about it, and hustle. You just got to be smart. And they already are up. Ecuador's up 2-0. So play it so that you're not going to get hurt. What does he do here? Valencia sticks his leg in here. But here, the really dangerous part is it is straight. He could come down here and get it hyperextended. But you're being overly cautious there. Well, no, actually, I'm not. Look at that. His leg practically is already overextending based on the force. Again, thankfully, that guy's left leg didn't come down and snap Valencia's leg. I've seen enough football to see plenty of injuries, and the last two, this example and the last one, are two of the most common examples. So Valencia, lucky you got off the hook on this game. Glad you did, but please don't put yourself in that position for the rest of the tournament. All right, moving on. Qatar did have a few chances here, and there was no better chance in the game than this one right here. Right before halftime would have given Qatar the momentum, would have made the score 2-1. And unfortunately, it's a big stage, and he fluffed his lines here. It was a nice cross in, and there it is, the point of contact at the head. You can see he's literally on the 6-yard box in the center of the goal. So the chance of the keeper stopping that if it's on target is, probably like less than 10%. But the keeper is in a good position. Unfortunately, Qatar just missed this, and it went off the side of his head, really. So we move on. Qatar has another opportunity in the second half. A good ping here across the field. He sees the guy he wants to hit. The ball's in midair. Great hustle here by Qatar. And he takes a shot on goal with his head. But it's a little bit too far out anyway. Chance of scoring on that is almost nil. It does go wide, though. But Qatar is actually starting to pick up a little momentum here. Now, here's another one. Qatar again. One of the defenders pings the ball down the field. You can see the ball in the air there, and highlighted the Qatar forward here. But surely this ball isn't going to get over the Ecuador defender. There's no way this ball should get over the defender. But it's almost as though the defender leans over to let the ball over him. So these are the little things, again, that can mean a lot. He's barely airborne to the Ecuador defender, is just a few inches off the ground. You just got to turn your body, get airborne, and just head that over to the sideline. Now, Qatar is off to the races. The forward knows, really, frankly, the main person he has to beat at this point is not the Ecuador defender on his right, but the Ecuador defender on his left who's bearing down hard. So let's see what happens. I think Qatar did a really smart job here of taking a first-time shot on the bounce, hard shot, but can be done because he has that defender just about to block him. So he tries the volley, and frankly, it just missed. And it caught the keeper a little bit off guard. That ball actually hit the top of the net, came down on the net. A lot of the Qatar fans actually thought it was a goal at first. I wish in a way that it had been for their sake, because it was right near the end of the game. Instead, it finished 2-0. And so I hope you really enjoyed the first match of the World Cup and this breakdown. If you do, keep watching, and please subscribe and share and comment and like. Thank you.